I come from in Kozarat, and my house was the ordinary family house where I'm living with mom and dad and with my wife and my child at that point of the time.
There's a few things that I can remember about the house in Bosnia. So I can remember, for instance, that when you're walking up the pathway, there's a tree, and on the tree my granddad had created a swing for me.
My house was beautiful on the hill house, and all tree and green, beautiful town and beautiful house, and basically village. I was only young. I was building other house for myself, but I nearly was in the finish.
I lived in a small village in Bosnia called Ternopolje. I was married with 3 kids, lived on a farm, worked in a city called Prijedor as a fire prevention officer. That's pretty much it, really.
Where our house is, our neighbours would be like like a 2-3 minute walk away from us, and I would, for instance, get ready and wear it, being a little girl and everything, put on my mum's shoes and get a little handbag and put all makeup on myself, and then I'd toddle along to our neighbour's house and ask for some food and for some sweets and a lollipop and stuff. And so there's those memories, there's that, which like I said, can't remember, but I know of.
May 1992, the local authority of Prijedor was taken over by Serbs. They said that they don't want to be part of Bosnia. They want to be still part of whatever was left of Yugoslavia, which is Serbia and Montenegro. And they basically told us that if we didn't like it, we can just go.
It was genocide against someone who was of different faith. So me and my family being Muslims and not being of what Serbians are, which is of Christianity, it was a sense of just ethnic cleansing.
It's very difficult to describe those moments, you know, when you have your next door neighbors, you know, shooting at you, and you have 3 children and you don't know what to do.
Serbs, they was attacking for a village, and after 3 days they taken all men's, and everybody starting destroy this houses, villages and everything, with army come in and taken us to the how they call this freedom and free area, but basically they separate us there in the family. I was separated 27 May 92, and I was ending in the concentration camp. I didn't know about family where they're ending, but at that point of the time.
The only vivid memory that I can remember of the war is being separated, and we were separated by our houses. So when the soldiers kind of came, so that was when everybody was separated. So Dad was taken into one truck and we were taken into another truck.
That moment, I'd say 24th of May, when the Serbs attacked our little village, all the hope of any fairness or democracy or justice died for me, and it never returned back.
Immediate family, so I lost both my grandfathers. One of my grandfathers, so my dad's dad, was found. His remains have been found. He's been laid down to rest. My mum's dad, he hasn't been found. His remains are still missing. We still don't know where they are. My mum, I think it's every 3 years, she still sends blood samples to British Red Cross, because they're still searching for them. And then I lost a lot of kind of uncles from my mum's side of family. So my auntie, she lost her husband and her son. Another auntie lost her husband. And then there's cousins, and then there's younger children as well, relatives. There's just far too many to be able to go into detail and say numbers. I wouldn't be able to tell you, I'm afraid.
I was extremely lucky to be picked up by Red Cross in one of the camps. I didn't know at that time that they were collecting, as they called us, medical evacuees. I was one of the 68 people taken to a local airport, put on a plane and flown to the UK. I had no idea where I was going and why. The first thing that I remember about UK is waking up on a bed, on a white sheet, looking at the white ceiling and thinking, I have died, oh my God, I have died. I'm so happy. Because the only thing, and if you were in a camp, that you thought about is how quickly can you die. None of us had any hope of surviving. So you really wish for somebody just to shoot you, or you just don't wake up at all. And that's the first thing I thought, because it was so nice, so warm, so white, that I thought I've actually died and woke up, you know, in heaven. And that's the first thing I remember about UK.
We had straight away translator. They say me, it's your bed, you're going in the bed. I say, no, I'm not going in the bed. And because I used to sleeping on the floor, and they say to me, no, we know where you come from and stuff, how you arriving and everything, no worry. But my initial thought was straight away, oh, I can't make dirty bed, because I know hard washing since 27 May until 15 September, one trousers, one t-shirt, one jumper, that's all the time, no washing teeth and everything. And there was like about maybe 10 minutes negotiation, shall I go in the bed or no? And I always say, no, I'm sitting there in chair, I'm quite comfy. And then slowly give us opportunity to realize we come to that treatment, and they're looking us for medically, how we looking, what condition we can.
During those times, during that month in hospital, we had some great people trying to help us find our families, because obviously we were picked up as men from houses. We didn't know where our families were in any way.
There was no telephone communications, no mobile phones, no texting then. You know, this was only 20 years ago, but still didn't exist.
What I didn't know until I arrived here, nothing about family. I had just one message by Red Cross, my family in Croatia. At that point in the time, I didn't know anything about that.
I had this number, and this guy, he rang the number, and he actually got this lady. And I've spoken to her, and she said, oh my God, your family's here. They were kind of ethnically cleansed into central Bosnia. I had a sister that lived in Zagreb who sent some papers, and it was very difficult to get out of Bosnia. And she had some guarantee papers or whatever, and they managed to get them into Croatia. So I found my family within like couple of weeks. The only thing that mattered for me was if they were alive or not, and they were alive, and that's all that mattered then.
So I didn't see my dad till December the 17th, which is when me and my mum arrived in the UK.
From Watford they say we need to spreading people where they need to go, and my destination was here in Boroughwood in the Shenwood Court in hostel with family in 15 December 92.
Government local council decided to house us. My family came the same year in 1992 for Christmas, and they gave us a flat in a place called Bedman Green, and that's when I was reunited with my family.
There was difficulty because you have just flat and you need a little bit paint, but you don't have furniture, you don't have any equipment, television, anything. Then lots I had into trouble. You had teenagers, what is again racially abuse you and shouting why you come here in this country and stuff. What this was really difficult period of the time.
We got picked on quite a lot, and then it was my dad, for instance, he experienced a lot of problems. So he would try and find work, but you couldn't. So then they put him into schooling. So they would go into schools and they would learn the language. So he went to college, trying to learn English and being able to communicate. And there was this one incident where a group of young lads had beat up my dad in front of the flat. And obviously me and my mum didn't know what we had to do, so she didn't know who you're supposed to call. She had no idea that 999 was a number for police. And she would be shouting out the window, but then she's scared to go downstairs and do anything. So she ended up, the neighbour across the hall to us, the neighbour called the police, and the police came. And then the policeman came, and then a few of our relatives, obviously then, you know, the men would come because they were worried for my dad's safety. And they came along and stuff, and were trying to sort out the situation. They calmed down the lads, the group of lads that were there. I think there was about 3 or 4 of them. And then the policeman took my dad into the house, and there was an interpreter, and the policeman said, you know, what do you want? We can prosecute them, we can do whatever you want with them now, because we've got evidence. There's, you know, and they were old enough, they were over 18. They were old enough to have to be punished by law. Dad turned around and said, no, I don't. I want them to come into my home, and I want their parents to come into my home. And the policeman was a bit, you know, taken back. He doesn't understand, well, why? And he goes, this is what I want, and I want them to come over. My wife is going to cook us coffee. We're going to have coffee, and we're going to have something to eat, and we're going to sit down, we're going to talk. The policeman was a bit thrown, in all honesty. Didn't understand what was going on. So what he did was, when they came, so that only two of the young men came, and their parents came. My dad told them the whole story that he'd experienced. Everything that he'd gone through, all the concentration camps, coming into this country not knowing the language, coming to this country not having any money, not understanding what was going on, always being worried that your safety, your life was at risk, your wife's life, your kid's life. That the boy started crying because he didn't know what he didn't know what he felt sorry. He was so apologetic. He was unbelievable as to how apologetic he was. He said, you know, I'm not going to punish you by going through the law. I just want to educate you and tell you that this is why we were here, that we came here against our own will. We came here for our own safety. From then on, we had no problems whatsoever, at all. And that boy would constantly come to my dad once a month. He would come and see him. They would go out for a beer, for instance, and they just started, you know, communicating better. And then the relationships, and then those boys would then tell all the other boys, and just the respect then that my dad and all the other older, you know, people of his generation within that area received from those young lads was incredible.
But my thought was, I have to be strong because of the children, and try to integrate them in this community, give them school and sort of a life in the future, whatever they happen. That's my thought was.
There's a lot of bullying in school as well, especially for me, even at secondary school at that stage, because they didn't understand where I was from. They didn't understand why was I white but I could speak another language. They didn't understand why was I white and I was a Muslim. They couldn't comprehend that. Whereas for my brother now, 20 years on, and for my younger brother now, it's much, much easier, because it's a more open society now. There's more difference, there's more ethnicity than what it was then.
My parents had some rough patches there and then, but nowhere's going to be perfect, of course, but you know, you're always going to have up and downs. And now, for me, it's just where I go to school, and you know, I've got a lot of people I know from here, and so, yeah.
My oldest daughter is a lawyer. She works in the city. My middle child's daughter, she got married a few years ago, and she moved, a few months ago, she moved to Salzburg in Austria with her husband, doing really well. And my son is 20 now, and he's just left for Santa Barbara, California. He plays soccer for Santa Barbara soccer team, and he goes to university there as well.
It will change, I don't know.
It's after everything, the only thing that matters is that, to be honest with you. And I'll never forget my mother telling me, you know, when it all finished, when we reunited, she said, my son, do you know who has won in this war? I said, no. And she said, the people that made it, they're the only winners. So if you're alive to your family, you know, to your wife, to your children, that's the only thing that mattered after all. And my biggest success is my children, I have to say, nothing else.
You see people now on the streets, my age, just hanging around the streets doing nothing, which I didn't want to resort to because one, it's a waste of time, or two, it's pointless because you're not going nowhere with your life.
I finished university, become a teacher. I'm very close to a charity association here, so I do a lot of work with them, a lot of voluntary work for them, a lot of planning with them. So for instance, being a teacher in the Saturday school, I teach the kids, the younger kids in the Bosnian school. So it goes from 12 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's more of a focus on them just being able to communicate within the language, being able to read it, understand it. Because like I said, a lot of them go back every year and so they can integrate and communicate with other kids as well.
You come to a new place, you're scared of, you know, change of culture, change of mind, you know, but it would always be the same to me, and that's how it's going to be for me, you know. And when I grow up, hopefully, well, a few years' time, you know, my kids would teach them the stories my dad taught me and tell them the history, because it's something you don't forget of what happened to our people.
I still keep in the my culture, and I'm very proud about that. My children speaking both language, Bosnian language and English language, and basically I try maintain all the time and I celebrate what is everything for my culture. But same times I celebrate with other people as well their culture, because this is important to integrate with community and not isolate. Yeah, we go celebration next week, a big event about 20 years arriving at here in this country.
It's just a celebration of everything that we've achieved, everything that we've been through as a whole community, individuals, because there'll be people there that aren't part of our community within Hertfordshire, but they've still achieved a lot, they've still gone through a lot, they've still experienced a lot, and they've overcome so many obstacles to be where they are now.
For all survivor, we treating every day in September like birthday, new birthday.
So we're going to make this as a celebration. We're going to make it a remembrance as well. It's been a hell of a journey.
I'm very excited. Hopefully it's going to be good. Can't wait.
Well, today my understanding of the event is bringing people together, looking at our problems, how to move forward, but not to forget the past, not to forget our culture, to integrate in the communities, sharing the differences and sharing the experiences and cultural values that we offer as this part of the world, Balkans. And the children to remember the past, where they come from, their origin, and to kind of be aware where's the homeland, as we call it, a promised land. We all dream about Bosnia, but perhaps we changed so much that it's probably a different place for us to live because we're used to England. So we have our differences now.
He's a
bit of a Brummy Bosnian.
I think today's event is absolutely crucial in terms of building real bridges between communities. It's very important to recognize the fact that, you know, those guys are living in Boremot, they are part of the community, and it's important to build those kind of bridges, you know, between local residents and the community.
It's wonderful to be here today. It's wonderful to see our people together and to see how we can actually integrate it into the English society. And there is loads of us who came here as children and now got their own families, and we carried on living.
I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. I believe in love, even when I don't feel it, when I cannot feel it. And I believe in God, even when God is staying silent.
Today is bound to be, isn't it, bittersweet. These good people are survivors of the worst carnage to blight Europe since the Third Reich, and they're marking 20 years since the first 68 of them, skeletal survivors of the concentration camps, that it was my sort of curse and honour to reveal in 1992. So by definition they've come to, I suppose, celebrate the survival, the fact that they were, through these extraordinary stories that every single one has, reunited with their families, or in some cases what was left of their families. But in celebrating that and the survival of what happened to them, they're bound to, is bound to invoke why it happened and what did happen. It's bound to invoke the memory of those that did not make it, of whom there are thousands from their community. It's been, we're here, we survived it, but survival is a double-edged thing.
His business and all his possessions are now the property of Serb Republic. We left him nothing. The clothes we stood in. They didn't want us in their new republic.
It's celebrating the fact that life continues and it goes on, and that people have survived most terrible atrocities. At the same time, it is also a memorial because so many people have died and so many people suffered, and it's important to remember them.
We owe it to them to keep their memories alive. We survived a war and should not be ashamed or embarrassed to share these feelings and experiences with other people, community, and if necessary, the world. Ne bude li Bosna, tada neće biti ni nas. Where there is no Bosnia, there wouldn't be us.
Mi smo imali puno podrške, mentalni, physically, emotionally.
Been through the camps, lost friends, lost villages, lost homes. But I've met people that I would die for, he said. That makes me a lucky man. And we try to tell our children this. If you make 3 friends, that's better than 300,000 on Facebook. But survival is also what we're here to celebrate and to consider in less celebratory language here, I think. You have survived, but then that is a complicated thing. It's not like a football match that has a whistle at the end of it, as you know.
It is something you want to forget, but it's something that follows you every single day. You wake up with it, you go to bed with it. You try to shield your children from it, but at the same time, you're very proud to inspire them with this.
Because I've become a mother, I think I've become much more aware of the suffering that the women who I see sitting in front of me and the thousands of others who are not here endured, as well as the men. Because if you remember the reports and the coverage at the time, very much focusing on the pictures of the men. And I now realise as a mother what an incredible job you women have done to recreate a life for your husbands and for your children here. It's absolutely staggering that after all you went through, you have still been able to nurture and plan and produce the wonderful, wonderful children and support your husbands through all that they've been through.
It is, for me, it's very important for my children is here, my parents, everybody is here.
It's to celebrate life, not to dwell on the things that we would, let past be a past.
We try and still to live this life, and it's fine for us and for our children, but we just try not to forget everything and be with our people, live this life.
Ja sam bosanska, ja sam engleska, ja sam ponosna.
We are extremely proud that we are quiet, humble people. We integrate easily into the community. But there's one thing about us is we don't forget who we are, and we always go back home. We're very homesick people.
They're incredible people, and their children have grown up here. Are they Bosnian? Are they British? They've done a most extraordinary job of being both, and neither in a way. So as you can hear, now we get to kind of part two, which is, I said to the famous Fikret Alic, the famous guy behind the barbed wire fence, who's not here, he went to Denmark. I said, Fikret, how did you survive? And he said, I survived because I am a man who can laugh. Well, that's not a funny remark, that's a very serious remark. And they have got this resilience, which is quite incredible. So when people talk about all this resolution, reconciliation, all that crap, no, it's not the politicians' language that matters. It is family, it is their ability to sing, to look after each other, to make music. That's part of survival too, no small part.
I'm Bosnian, I'm English, and I'm proud.